Hi everybody. Welcome back to yet another Agents of Mayhem stream. We are going to be focusing on a different agent today. Going to be talking about Yeti, who some people might be really familiar with. In fact, people have tried to guess from looking at the lineup of characters and stuff. Some of them look really familiar. Some people called pretty quickly, Kingpin, he might be Pierce. But yeah, Yeti is actually Oleg. Why not bring him back? He might be dead once, but fuck it. Hi, I'm Josh Stinson, the video editor here at Volition, and on the couch we have...
Hi, I'm Bryanna Lindsey. I'm a visual effects artist.
I'm James Kotzian. I'm a systems designer.
Rob Gable, producer. Title's a little different now, but I was a producer in AOM.
And over Skype, we have...
What's up? It's Mark Stewart. I do the voice for Oleg, also known as Yeti.
Yeah.
I like that when you introduced yourself, you had a lovely little ding.
Yeah.
It's like a game show.
It's got some sound cues over
Nothing's
there.
Whenever I say anything about Oleg, it's just ding.
All right. So speaking of Yeti, this also ties into some other stuff that's happening with the game at the moment. So if you haven't seen, you can go to our YouTube page to see this. It's also in a bunch of media outlets all over the place. You'll find it. But we announced that Johnny Gat is also in the game.
Whoa.
Hey!
Whoa.
Been waiting to announce that one too.
Crazy.
But you might see Johnny Gat. You might be wondering, okay, Johnny Gat's here. Oleg is back, but he's called Yeti now. What's going on here? And if you didn't know, we have talked about this a few times before, but so this is a alternate universe, a spin-off from Saints Row. So if you played God Out of Hell, you know that one of the endings in the game, God just reboots everything. And, you see the ending where Johnny Gat is a cop, and they're about to interrogate a person named Brimstone, who is Persephone Brimstone, leader of Mayhem. And so, because everything's been rebooted, Oleg's back. He's fine. He's okay. Don't worry about him. He's fine.
A little different.
A little different.
Change. He's gone through some stuff.
He has a skin condition.
It's very serious.
A little worse for wear.
Yeah. I guess first things first, when we're talking about Yeti or Oleg here, is we are going to jump over to take a look at some concept art. So this is some really early concepts for Yeti. A lot of characters evolve over time. Mm-hmm. You guys were talking about, just before we started the stream, that Yeti specifically went through a lot of changes. Was that lots of changes for his character design, or more like how he worked?
He went through for his combat kit in particular, and as we're playing with him, we can start to dig into that some more. But where this spun off from is, so the whole idea is on Devil's Night, Legion had their big attack across the globe. Mm-hmm. I think that was part of one of our earlier press releases. We showed clips from the Devil's Night. And so they attack different areas. In this game, we focus on how they took over Seoul and what's going on there specifically. But, we created backstory, a lot of lore for other areas. And in Moscow, they had the Cold Warrior program.
Right.
And so sort of like how Oleg in Saints Row the Third was trying to be cloned, had these genetic experiments.
Yeah.
Same sort of vein here, and we're thinking he's one of those that was experimented on, but he escaped. He joined Mayhem to help fight Legion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Taking a look at some other early concept art for Yeti here, already pretty close to what his final design was. Very cold, giant ice gun. Don't need a shirt.
Nah.
Don't need something else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what happens when it gets real cold.
You lose some stuff.
But this is actually very similar to what he looked like in Saints Row the Third when he was first introduced, because he's in that cloning tank. he's hanging there. I think we had some well placed blur, if I recall correctly. But he breaks free, and the rest of the mission you're running through looking at Oleg's butt. I suppose.
It's very cold then too.
Right. Yeah.
For the record, I think he does have junk. It's just the character.
Right.
For the record.
Don't worry about Yeti's junk.
Just defending his honor here. But
He's
I think
good.
it's just in the character design there.
Yeah.
They didn't need to draw.
But yeah, going through his stuff, he's definitely probably our biggest agent. He actually, we'll get to him later on. We'll actually be playing in game a little bit, showing how Yeti works. But he's kind of interesting that despite being, quite large, really powerful, his role isn't just to do a lot of damage. He's actually one of the more complex agents we have. He's probably one of my favorite to play just because he has like a little bit of a back and forth. This is actually a early shot somebody grabbed just while they were testing something in game.
Yeah, that's great.
Sometimes when you're playing the game, you just accidentally land on something that looks pretty cool. So it's always worth it to get screenshots of those. I think actually some of the official screenshots we released were based on stuff people just took and went like, "This looks really cool. Can we finesse this?" Yeah, this is like a early pre-alpha, but even back then, Yeti was already looking pretty good. So yeah, you might notice like, wait a minute. He's not cold yet. So this is actually some concept art, character art, specifically for the 2D intro. We've shown some 2D intros in the past, and every agent that you can recruit has a 2D intro cutscene kind of explaining where they're coming from. And actually, real quick, we can take a look at a very quick clip from his intro.
I was a soldier for Mother Russia, first and foremost.
But yeah, the 2D intros, go over kind of where all the agents are coming from, and they're, just some of my favorite like big things you get in the game. So yeah, this is his freeze gun. So yeah, he's all about freezing and slowing down enemies rather than just doing a large amount of damage. Although he can, but you got to work for it. It's not just
Yep.
You can't just shoot him.
It's a bit of a rhythm to him.
Yeah.
Which we can talk about more later.
Yeah, some official art for Yeti here. Looking
That's
pretty
so
good.
Yeah.
That is cool. It's so
that
good.
cold smoke coming off.
Yeah.
It's like holding it like he's like a rock star and that's his guitar or something. Like jamming out some
It's all
solo
frozen on the
behind his
back,
back.
too. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And you'll be able to talk more about that frozen stuff coming off him in a little bit. But yeah, so while we're talking about this, we saw a little bit of that intro. I want to talk to you, Mark, a little bit about your work on this. We'll actually switch to you. Oh my God, you're on camera.
Yay!
Hi, how are you?
Good. So we actually talked a little bit just while we were waiting for stream time to come around. So you mentioned that for Saints Row 3, Oleg was the first voice acting job for a game you'd ever done?
I had just gotten into voiceover, and I got this call for this character that was Russian and didn't know anything about it. Went in and took a stab at it and ended up booking it as my first gig. And it was awesome to kind of have that be my first experience with it, because unlike most games that you do, that game was done with more new at the same time. So we had these crazy headsets, and we were actually recording all together in different scenes. So it was really cool to kind of have that be the intro, and then have this character be the one that I was able to kind of come out with. And you kind of can't go wrong when you start off a game and you're a giant naked Russian dude hanging from tubes, in a lot. And then you get to run around naked all over the place. Not something I do like personally, but it was fun to watch it, being developed and in the game.
Right. So, you voiced for Oleg for 3 and 4, and you were talking that, you knew that.
Then I got the call. Yeah, then I got the call for this one, and I was like, really? Like, it had been years. It had been a while since the last time I'd done Oleg. And then when they brought me in, it was like, all right, so we want him, he's harder, he's a little bit more gruff, we want him to have more grit, he's gone through some stuff, and I was like, cool. So that's when you kind of let it sit a little bit more back in your voice. And it's, anytime you do a character like this, you kind of go into the booth and you don't just stand in front of a microphone. You take things on physically. You sort of embody the character with your body, and then your face starts to do certain things, and you find yourself doing this dance with yourself, and then you find you're right back in the groove with the character and the voice and how he moves and how he lumbers through, and the intelligence that this character has is kind of the dichotomy of where he's at with. He's a big chess player. He cares about things that you wouldn't necessarily think that a giant frozen muscular dude would care about.
Did you drink any straight vodka to do some method acting for him?
I mean, you can't not.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask because we've had some previous voice actors on as well for the other agents, and for the most part, and with other voice actors too, a lot of time, you talk to them normally, and it's like you hear their voice, and it's like, okay, I can hear the character they're doing in their normal voice, and I don't hear that with you.
Right.
How exactly do you do?
Bring back inside. You take it. Air all comes out, and then it bleeds inside here. It's one of those things that you just kind of pop into. I fortunately, I was doing that voice when I was 6. So,
Okay.
And
Intimidating.
I think that's one of the great things about doing what we do and being able to pop into these different characters is finding those things and then having no one know that you would ever do that. It's a big surprise. It's a big surprise to you sometimes when you get in the booth and you're like, whoa, I don't even know where that came from.
Yeah, I was about to just ask how people can find new voice. Like, is there any point where you are just trying out new voices just to see if there's something new you can do for a character, or do you just kind of just go with a gut instinct to just pull something out?
Generally, when you get the script, you get the breakdown of the character, and then you start off, kind of with a broad vision of what it is. And then, just like a painter, you add strokes to it. You may think that it's something when you start off, and it's like because you did something, then it clicks you into something. I pace around a lot. I pace around my apartment, and I find, where does it feel when I'm walking? What happens, with all of that? And that all kind of adds shades and color, and it fleshes out the character to be more human. Otherwise, if you're looking for a very broad character, sometimes you will go with that first instinct. But then as you kind of chip it away and you kind of sculpt this thing into what it is, then you find the true character and you find things that are interesting to you. It's usually the accidents. That's what happens in the booth as well. When you find that you're doing, when you go into the booth, you've got hundreds of lines that you're doing. And you don't get that script before you go into the booth. So you're pretty much winging it. And you've got to be able to settle in that character so that, and when you've got lines like that are going boom, 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 boom over and over again, it ends up, you've got to be able to just kind of roll through it. And when you're in character, it just kind of happens. It just kind of, you don't really have to think about it. The accidents in the booth are usually the ones that make everybody laugh.
Right.
And those are things that solidify the character even more. Things that your voice goes up here and all of a sudden it's like something that could have been like a real gruff, angry thing. It's like, aw. Like something, oh, it's a pussycat. Like it's one of those kind of things.
Right. So, you were mentioning that it's like, there's a decent gap of time between when you did Oleg and when you started doing Yeti. Were you able just to pull the voice right back out again, or did you kind of have to find it again?
Pretty much. I was able to go in there. Once they showed me the pictures of him, and I was like, that's my guy,
Okay.
And, but the one thing was that initially I think he was a little softer. I think that in Saints Row 3, there was an element of sensitivity that was there of what he'd gone through and who he was. In this one, he's a little bit more like, let's go. Yeah. It's pretty much right off the bat that he's got some grit to him that was missing, that's just kind of a little bit tweaked from before.
Okay. So I was talking to some of the audio people who work with the voice actors and also, editing the lines the voice actors perform and stuff. And I heard that you do some stuff other than voice acting. Do you run a restaurant?
I have a crazy restaurant company called the Gastro Garage. And just like voice acting or on-camera acting, I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. And so that's what I've kind of done with this concept is I've taken the storytelling aspect and combined it with the food aspect. So I don't have chefs. I have gastro mechanics. The concept is all sort of old mechanic shop, gas station. All my guys are in old gas station shirts with welding masks and blowtorches.
What?
And what we deconstruct classic dishes, things you're familiar with. We reconstruct them in what we call a gastro tank. It's a savory brioche-style donut that we fill with different nitrous-charged foam, and then we blowtorch stuff and put it on top.
What?
So like everything's
Amazing.
a Philly steak with an aged white cheddar foam, very thinly shaved New York strip, caramelized onion puree, truffle salt, olive oil, little chive, up to like Bernaise foam, garlic butter poached lobster tail, creme fraiche, caviar.
What?
So it's all a crazy thing. So we're sort of like a band of traveling food pirates right now. We go all over the world, and people bring us in for crazy parties and real. I designed a menu for Stallone at one point because he was doing that we needed to do some Italian stuff. I hadn't had the whole menu fleshed out. So we get to, you meet interesting people, you have interesting experiences. We're actually opening a location downtown Los Angeles in January.
Oh.
The Arts District. So
You
got
guys
a crazy
should,
ride. It's one of the things, like when you're an actor, sometimes you need a release to be able to kind of take you away from the stresses and the things that go with acting. And this has always been my passion. Food has always been my passion, cooking and sort of telling the tale through something you can consume,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
It's a little wacky.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that
great.
for?
About 3 years.
Wow,
Just
okay.
over 3 years. So I had come up with the concept. I've worked with a bunch of different chefs. When you're an actor, I waited tables for a long time because that's what actors do.
Right.
And so, I worked with some great chefs over time. I worked with Wolfgang Puck for about 7 years. I worked with a chef named Jose Andres, who's like just an amazing storyteller with food. And it's, I've been working on franchise concepts for a while, and then this one was one that sort of struck a chord with everybody who I had shared it with, and it just never lost momentum. I mean, from day one, literally, or before, I had one dish that I had created, and I'm not a chef. I mean, I have, and I don't. That's why I say that my guys are gastro mechanics. I have too much respect for people who are chefs. I'm an actor. I went to school for acting. I did not go to school for to be a chef, but I've worked with a lot of chefs, and I have a lot of friends who are chefs who've taught me a lot of awesome stuff. And I just this concept was something that resonated, and our first gig was Warner Brothers called us. They found out about us, and I had one dish created. They said they wanted to do a tasting for their international upfronts, which was a 5-day meeting with 500 people a day, an hour to feed them, and they wanted us to come do a tasting menu for them. And I had to create 2 more dishes, went in and did the tasting, and before we had 4 tires off the lot, they had hired us. So it kind of started us with a big bang, and it's not stopped since. So
That's awesome.
Damn.
Yeah.
You guys should come to Champaign.
Yeah.
Cheap rent.
Yeah, right.
Just drive the food truck just the whole block right around where Volition
Yeah.
is.
We'll pay for the gas from LA to here.
let me know when, and I'll be there. We'll surprise everybody in the office. There'll be blowtorches everywhere.
This place sounds awesome.
So you mentioned, going to school for acting. What have you acted in outside of video games?
Did a while back. I did Heroes. If you remember the show called Heroes.
Yeah.
Just recently, more recently, I did recurring on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Another Agents of franchise there. Chicago PD I just did a while ago. Got hung off of a building by my beard. I used to have a big beard. Hung off this building by my beard. And actually on June 17th, AMC has a show called Turn that I'll be doing a recurring in for a couple of episodes. So that's the next one to come up.
Nice.
Nice.
I'll look a little bit, my head's complete, shaved my head, and I'm in the opening scene, so you see me running a lot, but it's a very cool drone filmed, and ATVs and all kinds of craziness.
Sweet.
So anything that's agents of blank,
Yeah.
you must be casting. Yeah. Okay. You got that locked down.
But I have a history. Yeah, it's funny because I have a history of everything that I do, I get killed in. That's my MO. So I mean, it was only a matter of time in Saints Row that was going to happen. But you know what? Some universes, you get to come back.
You get to come back.
Are you and Sean Bean like besties then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, man, I hate dying. Man, me too.
Yeah, right.
So I think I heard this mentioned by some of the audio people too. But did you get injured while you were acting on a show?
Well, on turn.
On turn, okay.
It was this running sequence that they had. They literally, like in the script, when I auditioned for it, they said they needed somebody who could sprint. And I run every morning. I wouldn't say I'm much of a sprinter, but I was like, I'll try to run as fast as I can. So I get out on set, and it's this massive field with a beautiful tree in the center of it, and this farmland, and there's oxen, and this big farmhouse at the top with a herd of sheep. And the director, I walk out on set, and the director's like, all right, so what you're going to do is you're going to go up to that house, you're going to run through the sheep, you're going to barrel through that gate up there, and then you're just going to haul down the hill. And it was like this was a fair distance that I was going. Yeah. And I was like, first take, I was like, all right, I got to show these guys how fast I can go, and really pump it. And unfortunately, they didn't have the cameras rolling, but I killed it. I just went, and I actually fell. My body went ahead of my feet, and I tumbled and rolled, stood back up, kept running. There's a guy on a horse chasing me. There's a guy heading me off at the pass. And I get done, and I'm down on my knees, and it's like that scene in Platoon where Elias is getting shot from behind, and I'm just like, and like they're like, all right, great. I'm like, did you guys get that? They're like, no. Rehearsal. I'm like, okay, I did it. I had to do that same thing literally like probably 60 times, if not more. God. And about third or fourth time, I pulled one muscle, and then once I pulled one muscle, they all started going, and it was like at the end, I'm just like trying to make it through, it'll be interesting to see it once I see it all cut together when it airs on the 17th, because that's I know how I felt. My face probably showed the pain. Translates on film.
Oh man!
Some cuts you're just like limping along, and the others you're just running normally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a point when the medic and the stunt guy came over, and they were just like, "All right, we'll stop it right now. We will stop it." It's like, I'm like, why? And they're like, "Because we're looking at you. You look like you're in pain." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Or was that acting?" And I'm like, "I mean." You got to be a little bit of a tough guy.
Sure. It's getting into character. Man.
Oh, man. Well,
these are the things for our craft,
Yeah. Well, at least it's a lot less likely for you to get injured in voice acting, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some voice actors have to scream a lot and they'll pass out in the booth, but
yeah,
Yeti's not much of a screamer, so.
No, the most that you're going to do really in the booth is, you'll need a little tea afterwards. Right. Some honey.
Right. All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to take a look at how Yeti works in game.
Sweet.
Great.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Thanks for those cool stories, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
All right. So
Let's do it.
we got Yeti. He is basically all about freezing enemies. He's got a little bit of a it's probably just best to just bring some enemies in right away.
Yeah.
And kind of just show you him in action. We'll call in some people.
And this is the first time we're really showing Yeti in any way, right?
Yeah, this is basically the first time Yeti might have been seen a little bit in trailers and stuff, but this is the first time he's going to be, we're kind of really explaining what he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about his design.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
He's, if you can't tell from his character design, he's most definitely a tank. He's a big, bulky guy, and he can soak up a lot of damage. He does best when he's up in people's faces because he has a shorter range weapon. He does really well being around a lot of people. And he has his weapon that does it's an ice thrower, and it does lower but persistent damage. So he's sort of chipping away at people, but he has this common theme of building with him. So he'll be chipping away at people, but he'll build to sort of these punctuation marks of high damage where he'll dish out a bunch of damage. And it sort of gives him this interesting flow that I think makes him pretty unique to play, and definitely interesting and not really a standard tank that you'll find in many games. Other things of note, he is our superstar crowd controller. And what I mean by that is that he does really well when there's a ton of dudes on the battlefield. He's very good at just locking people down and handling a bunch of enemies at the same time. That was a pretty cool combo.
I just literally thought of it.
Yeah.
Somebody asked earlier in the chat about whether or not hardtack or Yeti is kind of the bigger tank.
That's interesting. Yeti has a lot of options in his combat, in his progression kit, which we'll get into later, to just make him the guy who's just constantly sticking around and who can be really, really durable. He's got sort of this durability build that can just give him a ton of points for soaking up damage.
Yeah, a little bit of it's what you build into.
Yeah.
I think as far as like raw health, Yeti might have the highest ceiling.
Yeah, because he doesn't have. I think hardtack has more shield. He has more shield than Yeti. But yeah, Yeti definitely has a lot of health.
Yeah. So specifically, some of the here we'll actually through the power of dev commands, I will turn the enemy's AI off here, so we can kind of take a good look at this. So a lot of guys have been blowing up pretty quickly. So you can see in the reticle we have this meter slowly building up while I fire the gun a whole lot. And this is, after he fires it for too long, his weapon becomes frozen. So he can no longer shoot his gun. You can just break the ice off, but there's advantages to having a frozen gun. So, normally if we meleeed somebody, you just backhand them.
Thank you, Carr.
Yeah.
Thank you. But if you have a frozen weapon, your melee actually turns into something far more powerful. Instead of backhanding, now you do a shockwave stomp, which kind of travels a bit, has a bit of a range to it.
Yep. You can hit more enemies.
It does a lot more damage. And that also applies to whatever special ability Yeti currently has equipped. It'll do whatever it does normally, but on top of that, it also does a lot of extra damage.
Yep.
So that's kind of a if we just go straight into what his kit is. You guys mentioned that you can build him a couple different ways, and the way I kind of built him here was going more towards being able to do those more powerful melee attacks more often. So like here, we have this ground pound special attack. So in the menu, every agent has 3 of these. I have Frozen Solid currently equipped. It's a ground pound which immobilizes nearby targets and also empowers Yetis, so it gives him a stat boost to his attack power. If his weapon is already fully frozen, it does damage on top of that. And all 3 of these inflict damage if your weapon's frozen while you perform them. But you have Glacial Barrage, which will make enemies vulnerable while empowering Yeti, and Frostbite, which will disrupt nearby targets, so it kind of knocks them out of whatever they're doing, and also empowers Yeti again. So with one of these selected, I want to be able to do that more often, add damage to it, which means if I equip a weapon gadget like Flash Freezer, my weapon just freezes 30% faster, which means he can get to the really powerful melee attacks more frequently than normal. But also, we have Blizzard Blaster, so the longer he fires, the more damage each successive hit does, up to a 50% bonus. And then the shield, Icefall Shield, which just restores 20% of his shield anytime he hits an enemy with the melee attack. So one of the other things you can do for his build specifically is equip him to be even more tanky, because he has on top of that one weapon gadget, he also has passive gadgets. I believe,
that one will give him more
Siberian
health.
Bowl.
That's good.
Yeah, 20% additional maximum health.
Yep.
So you can build him to get those more powerful attacks more frequently by freezing his gun faster. You can make him more tanky by more health and giving him more ways to restore shield or health. It just makes him if you already have some good normal attackers in your squad or something, throwing him in there is a really good way to be I need some heat off Fortune, who does not have nearly as much health or shield.
Yeah.
It's like she's taking a lot of hits. She needs to regenerate. I'll switch to Yeti, who, while we're playing the game here, all the agents are completely maxed out. So Yeti has 41,000 HP, which, I mean, we have Fortune here too. How much HP does she have? At max level, she has 5,910. So Yeti's a lot beefier than Fortune is.
Yeah.
Even Hardtack, look at how Hardtack has 16,555, you know?
Yeah. Yeti is that guy who will always be there. He can always be there and always be alive, pretty much, as long as you're not totally just, dropping the ball when you're playing him.
These other two things here, we've got Yeti gains Fortifying Power whenever his weapon is frozen over, so that just gives him a stat boost to when his weapon's frozen. And also he can gain 10% Mayhem whenever he hits stunned enemies with a special ability. So a way to get his Mayhem a little quicker too, which we have not actually seen yet. We'll actually re-enable the AI for the enemies here if they have not. Here's some people.
One guy.
Yeah.
Works better with multiple.
Yeah,
enemies.
he works better with his Mayhem works better when you have multiple. So we'll actually call in a couple extra here. They should be dropping in shortly. Not those.
They won't work well with them.
Yeah, these are one of the guys I actually have trouble dealing with. There we go.
There
Dealing
you go.
with Yeti.
Yeah, because he's short range.
Yeah, short
so
range.
It's not great for boom bots.
In fact, I could even just, with my keyboard here, drop in some enemies manually.
There you go.
I have a lot of hotkeys I've made. So his Mayhem... Everybody in the vicinity has been frozen and stunned. And because Yeti is also fully upgraded, his weapon stays frozen for the entire duration. A big boy's coming. But yeah, because Yeti is fully upgraded, his weapon stays frozen for the entire duration of the Mayhem, which means I can just constantly melee stomp everybody for a ton of damage. Just mow these dudes down.
And that's kind of another build you can get with Yeti, sort of a build that plays more into his Mayhem.
Right.
So like you mentioned, there's that passive gadget that gives him more Mayhem, which is our resource that you build up, so that then you can use your Mayhem ability.
Right.
So if you equip that, and then you also have, there's an upgrade that lets your Mayhem last longer, and then you can also combine that with the crystal upgrade that we have equipped now, where his weapon is frozen for the duration of that Mayhem, so you can just stomp fools.
Right.
Like that's another way you can build him to lean more into his Mayhem ability.
And like Yeti being able to like immobilize enemies is kind of useful here, because this guy, you can see this specific enemy has like this aura of influence where any enemies within it are getting buffed by him. So if we can freeze him, he's not going to go towards the enemies to like kind of get them in his area of influence.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of Yeti's combat in a nutshell there. We actually haven't either looked at his other... so you can upgrade Yeti, when he levels up. Every agent has 4 unique stats that you can upgrade. Here, we're upgrading the duration of his Mayhem ability, increasing the melee damage versus frozen enemies. So again, you can kind of go towards maybe trying to have a longer stream on your gun instead of it being frozen, so you can freeze enemies more. 50% shield regain from frozen melee, and just 20% max shields as a squad bonus for everybody. You don't even have to be playing as him. As long as he's in the squad, everybody has just more shields. And then we have the core upgrades, which once you purchase them, are just permanent passive upgrades. Inflicts 20% bonus damage on stunned and frozen targets. Gains 3 stacks of power when he reloads his weapon. So anytime you reload that weapon, his attack goes up. And then, like I said earlier, Cold Snap makes his weapon permanently frozen for his Mayhem ability. I feel like he's kind of one of the harder ones to wrap your head around, but he's really useful once you get used to him, especially if grab some other people who can kind of make up for the weaknesses he may have.
Yeah.
Short range.
Well, that's how you have to think about people in this game is they're part of a squad that you're able to put together.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about Yeti is he plays very differently than the other agents in the game. He really stands out.
Oh, he certainly does.
Yeah, and from his visuals to his VFX to his combat kit, and in these open spaces where we've been dropping some sporadic enemies, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, okay, like crowd control's okay, I guess, but really in the game you're gonna be swarmed with enemies often.
Yeah. There's a lot of enemies.
Frenetic combat, they're
He's
all
great
over
with
the place.
dealing with that.
Yeah, so swapping Yeti in.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, there's a lot of
Frozen car.
yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is a skin for this vehicle that's just it's themed after Yeti.
Yeah. Yeah. You could almost say that Yeti is our special snowflake.
No.
But he is. Hardtack. Hardtack is more of our typical kind of tank, what you would expect from a tank shotgun that does these slow bursts of high damage, whereas he does this low persistent damage and has this kind of interesting flow with him where you're managing your heat, the heat of your weapon, which in this case is your ice, as a resource that can really help you out.
Yeah.
So it makes him unique.
I know from a visual effects standpoint, I mean, he was probably one of our more complicated agents.
I'm actually gonna get to just switching areas for the heck of it, and then I was gonna take a bit of a look at his VFX because I feel like was he probably the hardest one to work on VFX wise?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
Not probably.
Most. It just seems he has a lot of stuff unique to just him.
He's the only agent that every VFX artist worked on in some capacity.
Okay.
All of us contributed in one way or another to Yeti. I mean, even when he stands still, he gets that cold snow that falls off of him, and that required a unique setup. We actually spawned that off of his mesh, and we mask his pants off so it only comes off of like his his upper body.
Right.
And his cold thrower went through a lot of iterations too because we have to make sure that it reads in the player camera. One of the tricks we did, we put a light at the end of it. So when you look at it when it's going in space, you have that light that can kind of help you just, might not entirely pick up on it, but it helps you to determine where the end of that cold thrower is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And even that snowball there, like that was a part of our work too.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you move while he's throwing the snowball, doesn't it actually stay around as a physics object?
It does. It stays around as a physics object. And if you shoot it with another agent, you'll see a little
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. That was a little. Yeah, there you go.
Oh no, it's gonna roll down the thing.
You can shoot it.
Ah.
Oh, you missed.
Oh, it's still there.
Oh, is it?
Is it?
So.
There
I
it
think
is.
it rolled off.
No, it's just
No.
keep going. Good
Oh, geez, it's still there. Okay.
See if you can get it.
It's going to become a
Get
big
it?
snowball.
Oh man, fortune.
There you got
there
it.
you go.
See how it poofs into like more little bits?
Yeah.
Like we polished him. He was.
Why do we spend time making all those missions for the game? That should be the whole thing.
Evolved
Shoot
our snowball tech.
Yeah, well, it's he was a lot of work for everyone. I mean, you'll notice when he shoots enemies, they actually freeze, and that had to be a whole shader done by our shader team. And
Right.
I mean, he's got those upgraded melees, even his jump effects. I mean, he shoots his gun
Yeah,
down
I
to the
love
ground,
that.
which
I think
is
that's
like
so cool. His air dash too is sweet.
Yeah.
it's all unique stuff.
Do
it's
that
different
air dash
from
again. That's awesome.
Hardtack and Fortune's jump.
Yeah. I really because there was a time where his air dash wasn't, There's also a time I think when his double jump, he was just jumping normally, not boosting with his gun.
That's right. Yeah.
And I remember like the day where I just downloaded a new build and Yeti was the one randomly in the team and I jumped and it's like, oh shit, he jumped with his gun now.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
And it sort of makes sense. Like he's a big guy. It's a lot of mass. He needs some help.
Right.
Yeah. It was a very exciting thing for me just to see this happen, just because it felt like it made him a lot more unique. Like, even though it's functionally the same as every other agent, really, it's
Yeah. Animation does so much to bring him to life.
just utilizing what his character is a lot more. But yeah, so you were talking about. I remember there was specifically a time where I had a really hard time telling how far this went. And now it's like.
Well,
Yeah.
we did a lot of iterations on that freeze gun. Adding the light helped. We had a new effects artist start. That was his first assignment. That was kind of a really hard first assignment to throw him off into the deep end, kind of. But he came through and it looks really good. But I mean, there's other little things that we put in there to give you depth cues because that player camera, we want to make sure it looks good in combat. So if you freeze frame it, freeze frame. His eyes. We put some little ice crystals in there that kind of helps give you that depth cue too. So you can kind of your eye can discern like where the end point for the gun is and how far back it goes because that's really important in combat. If you can't reach a guy, you need to be able to tell.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we also went through a period where the effect coming off of his body was more intense, but then that blocked the player's view of the combat going on, so we had to dial it in.
Yeah, we when you move, like you stop seeing the cold smoke come off.
Yeah. I remember months and months ago there was like a very brief bug where like pretty much every single particle effect in the game was weird looking. There's just something weird going on where
it was like looked like it was like that negative filter.
It looked like it was like negative colors.
Yeah, things got weird with
there was no transparency to everything. So like when the cold stuff was coming off his body, it looked like huge stink clouds or something.
Yeah.
He just looked like he was really smelly or like pig pen or something.
I think that was a rendering bug.
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
Could you use a compliment and
Yeah.
I am proud to stand beside you.
Listen to that voice acting. It's great.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Charlatan.
There you go.
That's great.
There you go. He was, we were talking earlier, Yeti had one of the more interesting journeys as far as the characters and their combat kits and how we positioned them went. Him and Kingpin in particular, we kind of had to like revisit some aspects of them. With Yeti, it was a matter of, since he did play considerably different than other agents in the game, we had to keep revisiting what we had him do, because if he wasn't effective at all in combat, you'd be like, well, why are we keeping him around? For a long time, He didn't actually freeze anybody. He just slowed. He was all about slowing. And we decided to take him in the freezing direction, which meant some more work, like Bryanna said, as far as getting the shaders on people, similar to what we did for Saints Row 4 with the freeze superpowers.
Yeah.
We pushed in that direction and some things started to click, but also there was a period where his Mayhem ability would basically form an ice cage around him.
Huh.
The concept there was like Yeti's saying, I'm marking this area, this is now my arena. Like, I'll trap people in here and it's just going to be a death room. And it was a really cool concept, but in execution, it could prove frustrating pretty often.
How he worked changed, almost on a week-to-week basis, like either tweaking numbers or, adding new things or removing things until, they figured out what made him useful and fun. But once that stuff started to settle in, it was like,
he was one of the last ones to finally click into place and start feeling good. And then we saw more and more people, especially in our usability tests, bringing him into their squads.
Yep, we had to definitely nudge him in certain ways to get him to make sure that he was fun. And it wasn't. He never had like a huge design problem with him. It was more of these sort of gentle pushes to hit more of the experience that we wanted with him. And it's kind of interesting how that works. Some people might not like a character at all, and then you make a small little change that just makes them click, and then suddenly they love that character.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, very much so. Have we announced the roster?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Should I
12
say
playable
that?
agents,
Yeah.
I mean, no, we've seen the full lineup of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Red Card was one of those where made a change to how his weapon operated. And all of a sudden he went from like, oh, he's kind of like these other people and doesn't really stand out, to like just people got him and they really liked him.
Yeah.
I think some of that, at least for Yeti, a lot of that for us on the VFX team was just iterating on his stuff until it read in the player camera and until like things like the freezing felt good.
Yeah.
Because without that material that was done by our lovely material artists.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to bring up before we wrapped up the stream was, like when you, even just shooting normal objects, they slowly become more frozen.
And there had to be a whole custom setup for that, and that was multiple people and multiple discussions between all sorts of disciplines and all sorts of artists. But I mean, the
Yeah.
team really pulled through on it. I'm really proud of the work that everybody did.
Yeah, and other things like, some people may not have noticed it, but when you're firing the gun, like on top of the meter flame until it's getting frozen, you see the gun more and more, the ice slowly creeps up on the weapon too.
Yeah, it's a nice visual reinforcement.
Yeah, like it's. I remember the day I noticed that had been added. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of work.
yeah, I bet.
It was good.
It used to be a lot more subtle too,
Yeah, there's
Yes,
a lot
it
of
did.
back and forth on
but
that.
now you can actually see it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you don't want it to be overpowering, but you also want it to be noticeable. It's a
Yeah.
balance. So there was definitely a lot of iteration where it went in both directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially since it has a gameplay effect too, because some things are purely visual, some things are purely gameplay. But when the player is looking for that feedback, makes a big difference.
Yeah, it
That's
does.
what we do in VFX. We
Yeah.
communicate. We tell you, the players, what you're doing.
Yeah, you turned out to be a pretty cool guy.
No. I feel like every time people are on this stream, somebody always sneaks in like a dad joke. Or
You
a dad
have
line
to,
here.
especially with this.
And they're
with-
just
with
always
Yeti.
pushing it to see how far they can go
Yeah.
before I'm like, get off the string.
Can this just become like when Arnold Schwarzenegger did Mr. Freeze in that Batman movie?
Yeah.
I mean,
Just lay down those ice puns.
I mean, if we could get Yeti to actually voice act, like if we had actual Yeti lines for all those,
chill out.
I would be totally
That'd be
good with
great,
that.
yeah. If only we knew a guy who could do his voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess before we wrap this up here, because we're getting close to 5 o'clock here, is we'll switch back to us for briefly. So at the end of these streams, we usually like to show some bugs, because bugs are
Those are fun.
most of the time bugs are really annoying to fix, right? And really baffling, I suppose. But every once in a while, you get a bug that is actually, you still got to take it out of the game, but at least you can archive and go like, oh yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So we got a couple pertaining specifically to Yeti, but we also have a couple, I think one this time, just miscellaneous bugs from some other random things.
Okay. Whoa.
So, yeah, you're seeing that stuff. I'll see it here in a second. So, when we switch back here, did you ever see this bug happen?
I don't remember. So his gun is gone. He's not holding his gun.
Yeah,
I see a light going
cloud.
off, and he's floating on some particles.
yeah.
It doesn't look very good.
I thought so. The reason why this got saved is this specifically if you're a Dragon Ball fan.
I was gonna say, yeah. It's like,
It looks like Goku riding around on Cloud. What is the name of the cloud again?
I don't know. I wasn't that big of a
Man,
fan.
Mike knows. Our community developer knows. It's like skipping my mind right now. But yeah, we also have. I don't know why this happened with Yeti.
Oh,
Derpy
it
Shrek.
looks like one of his maps is messed up and his facial
Yeah,
animation.
he
or
started
something.
turning into Shrek just a little
We
bit.
had,
Yeah.
I think because his skin's so light, while lighting was under development, when he'd go into different areas, his skin color would change drastically.
Sounds about right.
Oh no, he's got a
Shrek.
skin. Right? That's sort of like this.
He may, I can't remember all his skins.
remember.
I
Yeah.
don't believe he has one that turns in green like this.
But we definitely had that for a while where,
Yeah.
like when lighting was working in different areas, you'd take him somewhere and you'd be like, oh, why is he blue now? Why is he yellow now?
That sounds about right.
And then,
Yeah, that is his skin. It's the Incredible Yeti.
just,
That's bizarre though.
I can say what I think is happening there, but yeah, it's if you hopped in cars, sometimes
As you just stay
they
in,
just stayed in,
sit on your lap.
sit in your lap, just go for a ride. Grandma actually never learned how to drive, but sometimes we like to let her think she drives. So
Aw.
This is how we get our M rating.
I wish there were a writer here so I could ask them, is this Yeti's actual grandma? And then get told no. And then we have a couple video bugs here. This one isn't specifically Yeti, but this was a GIF somebody made at some point. This is just what happens when two cars spawn inside of each other.
Aw, man.
When one car loves another car.
Yeah. And yeah, this was a VFX thing I brought up with you before the stream started.
Mm-hmm.
I like how this person made like a little bit of like a rock show scene with it.
It's pretty great.
They spent some time on that.
Yeah,
I think that was the bug with soft stop. But,
Yeah.
You know, that was also an earlier iteration of his gun effect. When we were still kind of struggling with getting the ice thrower to read in the player camera. But yeah, that's definitely a soft stop issue.
It's not stopping.
Yeah, and I believe we have one more. Oh yes. So some people might be happy to see that Oleg and Pierce still playing some chess.
Yeah. Just like the good old days.
Hopefully this game ends better than their game in Saints Row 4.
Yeah. But then Pierce got a little you know, not going to let a chair stop him celebrating the move he has thought to do in chess but has not yet performed.
There's some areas in the headquarters where agents can the ones you're not playing as, they'll ambiently spawn in, and they'll be doing different activities like working out, and definitely we wanted to make sure the action nodes were set up so that this could happen.
Yeah. Hopefully it gets finished this time. But, oh man. But yeah, those are some of the bugs that can happen while working on a game that are fun, at least.
Yeah.
And not just like...
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a whole bunch that are not fun. But
yeah, this is the small minority, but at least people remember to always capture them when they happen. But yeah, that's Yeti, kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah.
He's definitely one of my favorites gameplay-wise, I think. And also just like one of the more interesting ones to me, just because, you know, he jumps with his gun. He has all those extra little details with the snowball. Everything you shoot actually does get frozen and all that. And also just being one of the more mechanically advanced ones. I don't know. I'm the person who always gravitates towards the most complex character you can play as in a game. So, you know, if you give me a fighting game and you tell me there's a person who has 5 different stances, and they all have completely different button inputs, and that's the one I'm going to go for because it's the one that's going to be the hardest to learn.
Yeah, he's more nuanced.
And then I can brag a lot and be real smug about it.
There you go.
And then nobody hangs out with me anymore. I don't know why this keeps happening.
I like him because he's one of the best at setting up other agents, too. Because he can freeze or slow and then swap in somebody who, like Fortune, who's real fast, he can output a ton of damage.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a brief look at Yeti. Just another tie to Saints Row, since this is a alternate universe where, you know, after God of Hell, got rebooted universe. Oleg's fine! Hooray! But yeah, if you want to learn more about our game Agents of Mayhem, which launches on August 15th this year, or if you want to be able to check out the new trailer announcing Johnny Gat as one of the playable agents, you can visit us on Twitter at AOMTheGame. Our website is AOMTheGame.com, and we are also AOMTheGame on Facebook. And you can get more details there about Gat and all that other stuff through there. And yeah, thanks for watching. We are streaming every week, every Thursday, until the game comes out, where we'll be taking a look at, you know, different agents. We've done a couple other different things too. Last week we showed that sweet GDC presentation about animating all the agents in the game. And yeah, so we stream every week, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific, 22 GMT. And today we had myself, hello. I'm Josh Stinson, the video editor here at Volition. On the couch we had...
Bryanna Lindsey, I'm an effects artist.
James Kotzian, a systems designer.
Rob Gable, I don't know what my title will be next week, so we'll see.
He's a guy.
And then
stuff.
And then
I have one.
Again, everybody. Hope to see you soon.
Awesome.
And then we just had Yeti over Skype. But yeah, seriously, thank you for coming on, Mark.
Yeah,
it's always
thanks,
great having voice actors on.
Yeah.
guys.
And yeah, we also had moderating the chat, Mike Watson, our community developer. Thank you, Mike. And yeah, we will see you next week with some other cool stuff. So yeah, see you later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.